No one intervened on behalf
And now, coming to you live from atop the Goldenrod City radio tower, it's the one, the only, PUCL TCGcast.
Hello, and welcome to the 96th episode of the PUCL TCGcast with your host, Basket. While we're waiting for the official Brilliant Stars setlist for the US, we decided to just have a chill, fun episode where we talk about our favorite decks of all time. Yes, I'm going to mention Vespa Quinn, but I'll try to keep it brief. And, of course, I have a wonderful co-host with me today, all the way from Alola's Battle Royale stadium. It's Seth Vilo.
Hello, it is me. It is I, the one from the Battlecast. Yes, me. Hi. I won't be talking about Vespa Quinn. I'll leave that to you.
All right. So, we're just going to be like hemming and hawing and gushing all over these decks. So, we're basically just going to jump right into the main topic.
Yeah, a good December episode.
Grab your ice-cold Corsola Cola and pull up a chair. It's time for Tropical Beach.
All right, Seth, how about you start us off?
I would love to, even though the first one on my list is going to be astoundingly boring. My current favorite deck to play, I know this is all time, but I might as well start with the one that I did in the tournament a couple of weeks ago that I went to.
Oh, yeah.
That is good old Mew Vmax that came out in the Fusion Strike set. And oh my gosh, I've never had more fun playing a deck than Mew. I just feel like I can do everything I need to, everything I want to. For those who don't know, Mew's whole gimmick is that it has Cross Fusion Strike. That's the name of its first attack. For 2 colorless energy, it says you can use any attack of any of your Fusion Strike Pokemons in play on your bench, and you can use that attack as this attack. So, for example, the primary attack you're copying is either Genesect V's Technoblast, which does 210 and you can't attack next turn. Astoundingly efficient for 210 damage, having 2 energy cost. The other most common attack is Melodious Echo from a Meloetta that you include in the deck. It does 70 times the amount of Fusion Strike energy you have in play. Other than that, it's almost a turbo list because you play a billion items and like 5 supporters, 6 supporters, something like that. They're all just Boss's Orders or Ellis's Sparkle, and the rest are all items. You only play 6 energy, too. Like, it's crazy how quickly you can cycle through your entire deck. I love it. It's so much fun.
It's cool. It's cool that that you actually took that to a competitive match because, one, I'm super jealous because I haven't been able to do any of those. But also, we talked about those cards, I think, last month, or maybe it was a month. Yeah, I think it was last month. And so it's cool to see, like, that being taken, like, that deck being used and seeing, like, what cards are added or anything. Was there anything that was kind of like not necessarily a shock to you, but something that you did different with the deck or that you were surprised to find out was in that deck or deck lists that people were making with it?
Yeah. The early deck lists before Fusion Strike, when it was kind of in the pre-release or the first couple weeks of it coming out, most of them ran a Peony supporter engine, which, if you don't remember, the effect is you discard your entire hand and search your deck for 2 trainer cards. So a lot of the Mew decks would do that both to get rid of the stuff in their hands so they could draw more with Genesect, whose ability says draw cards for each Fusion Strike Pokemon you have in play. So if you've got 6 Fusion Strike Pokemon out, you draw up to 6 cards, which is incredibly powerful, and you can do it multiple times a turn with multiple Genesect. So it went really well with the Peony engine, but ironically, Peony itself, because you played so many, clogged up your hand so often that it would often keep you from really cycling on all cylinders. So eventually people started, and me included, started just cutting the Peony entirely for just straight Boss and Ellis's Sparkle. It was wild. Latios is also just almost completely dropped out of people's deck lists. That Dyna Barrier was good early, but as one guy who I played in a tournament with said, and I think he's pretty accurate about this, the Latios Dyna Barrier is kind of a trap where you think it's really good, but every deck has some way around it. If it's just switching around, bosses upping another Mew or something like that, or just things that go or alternate attackers that aren't Vmaxes. So pretty much everything had a way around it. So it's not really worth the slot.
Oh, wow. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I was surprised. In the tournament, I had Latias, and it could have saved me in one matchup, but that was it. Just the one matchup.
It could have saved you in one, and it didn't?
Yeah, I had it prized, unfortunately.
That sucks!
Yeah.
Oh, man. Oh, dude. That's a bummer.
Yeah. Oh, well. But Oricorio's fun, too. That's one that I've thrown in because I still believe in Oricorio. So, oh, well. It was a lot of fun, though. I loved that tournament. I came in the top 8. I think I ended up going against a Dark deck in the end game, though, in the first round of top 8. So I was immediately kicked out because Mew can't. If it doesn't find the right pieces early, you're just stuck. So it was a lot of fun, though. And Mew, undisputed, right now is the best deck in format. So, of course, it's going to be my favorite.
All right. So I guess I'll go next. We'll start out with Night March.
Sounds good.
A lot of people hated this deck, but a lot of people loved it. It was very divisive deck. I loved it because it was my introduction to the TCG, and it was incredibly cheap, very easy to play. So the mechanics itself were like it, but it also introduced you to a lot of different ways to play the game as well. Like it wasn't just a standard deck because you were going through like a lot of your you were discarding a lot of things, and It just introduced you into a lot of mechanics that other decks wouldn't.
Yeah, kind of almost counterintuitive, where it's like you're discarding attackers, so it's just in your head, it's like, this doesn't make sense until you finally get Night March clicking, right?
Yeah, it's just a really, really fun deck to play. Really fun. And I don't think that if Night March wasn't in the meta and doing really well, I don't think I would have gotten into the Pokemon TCG nearly as much. Because
that's fair.
There was enough of a learning curve that I feel like if I would have had to have started paying a bunch of money for cards and to build a deck at the same time, then I just would have been like, nope, not going to do it. And then you wouldn't have me here.
Exactly. And what fun would that be?
Yeah. So Night March created Basket.
Night March created Basket. Oh, that's good. The other thing I kind of like about Night March, and the one you've already spoiled that you're going to talk about eventually in this show, and quite frankly, a couple of mine. A lot of these decks have their own kind of mini game to them, almost instead of just slapping the other Pokemon on your opponent's side. The Night March's mini game was get as many Pokemon into the discard pile as you can.
Yeah.
Mew Vmax's mini game is how many of my Pokemon can I get out on turn 1? That's that one's mini game. A lot of them have their own little kind of other, like the whole V-Union concept is a mini game in and of itself. So I'm really hoping that one of those takes off when Ultra Ball comes back. But I digress. I'm distracting. I guess it's my turn now, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm not going to go quite as far back in time as Basket just did, because Night March came out in like 2014, 2015, something like that. Mine is just from a couple of years ago, my second one on my list, and that is Dark Box from the Sun and Moon era. I forget which set and which year it came out. I want to say Unified Minds, but I don't think that's right. Weavile GX, though, is what enabled this deck to exist, which, for those who don't know, its ability let you move dark energies anywhere as often as you like during your turn. So you were very fluid in where you put all of your dark energies. This was further facilitated by things like the couple of specific tag team GXs. Umbreon Darkrai was really good in that deck. It was kind of the primary attacker in a sense, because it had the tag team GX attack that just instantly KOs something, and if you had... No, other way around. It did something and you couldn't play trainer cards from your hand next turn, but if you had 6 dark energies attached to it, it also instantly KO'd whatever was in front of it. So that was really good. There was the Mega Sableye and Tyranitar Tag Team GX that did just a bunch of damage and let you take extra prizes, and its Tag Team GX attack, which actually won me a game when I took Darkbox to Knoxville Regionals a couple of years ago. Just discards the top 15 cards of your opponent's deck. I was playing against a control deck that only had 3 cards to his deck. Man, that was such a satisfying game, because when you're playing control, you have a billion actions to do on your turn, and you have to do every single one of them correctly. Mm-hmm. And I was watching this guy just get more and more mentally exhausted, having to do his turn perfectly time after time after time. And my turn consisted of draw card, pass. So he finally gave me the one card I needed to win the game. I dropped the Dark Energy and discarded his deck. And I said, you want to go to round 2? This was 45 minutes into the hour. And he was like, no, you got it. That was game 1, too. Gosh. Other cards that enabled it, though, when it was legal to run alongside it, the Naganadel from Lost Thunder was really good with it. That just pulled a basic energy from your discard to Naganadel? I think it's pronounced Naganadel. I need to look it up. I need to look up that pronunciation guide on Cerebi.
I like Naganadel better. Naganadel sounds like
I think it's that one because it's German. It's like German based, and nadel I think is the German word for needle.
Ah.
So I think it's like Naga, which is like some kind of mythological creature plus German word for needle.
Yeah, it's like
could be wrong,
like a snake thing. And the needle. That's kind of cool. All right, I might like that a little bit better now.
But there was also the non-GX Guzzlord that came out that lets you take extra prizes as well, kind of like a miniature Sabletar. So, Darkbox was just so fluid in what it could do. If that card existed now, where we have Galarian Moltres V, which acts as a Naganadel you don't have to evolve, and is a good attacker on its own, plus Eternatus, plus Weavile. That would be bananas. It would be so much. I mean, Weavile was running Eternatus when it was still legal alongside it for those couple of months. I don't know how long it was, but oh well, could be fun and expanded. I think it probably is run a little bit and expanded like that. But yeah, it's fun. Darkbox was cool. It was one of my favorites. I'm sad that little thing happened in 2020 that kept me from playing it in live events, but here we are. You're up, my friend.
Yeah. Just real quick, it was funny when I was looking over the show notes. I saw the Darkbox thing, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I know that deck." And then I just kept going through. But then it was like I started reading the Pokemon when you started talking about it, and I was like, "Wait, what is this?" 'Cause I was thinking it was the Darkbox with the old Darkrai, the one that was just like like you just shove all the energies wherever you want on Darkrai, and then he just goes to town. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Darkrai Giratina. That's what I was thinking of.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Honestly, that's still probably a good combination in like expanded, because both of those Darkrai are good. There's the one that does damage based on how many energies are on the field, and then there's the one that resurrects itself from the discard pile.
Yeah.
With an energy attachment. So then you can move that around with the Weavile. I mean, Dark is just really oddly synergistic with itself, and I love it.
Yeah. All right. So next I'm going to do Vespa Quinn. So Vespa Quinn is probably my favorite deck of all time. I'm sure anybody that's listened to a single episode of the TCGcast is fully aware of that and are probably rolling their eyes right now. So Vespa Quinn for me was great because when I got into Vespa Quinn like right after Night March. After I played a bit of Night March and I learned how to play the TCG, I wanted to experiment and kind of branch out. I also didn't want to play Night March anymore because Night March was like a win button, kind of.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so I decided to go with a slightly smaller win button with Vespa Quinn. And I liked Vespa Quinn because that was the deck that I played for the longest and that survived for a lot of years because I was playing it in Expanded after it was out, and it was just a fantastic deck. So basically, just in case any of you do not know, Vespa Quinn basically plays like Night March, where it deals damage based on how many Pokemon are in your discard pile. The main difference is that, like, it's not quite as quick to get out because obviously it's a stage 1, so you have to evolve it, but there were things like Forest of Giant Plants that would just make it so that if you had a Combi out there and a Vespa Quinn in your hand on turn 1, you could just slam down that Vespa Quinn.
R.I.P. Forest of Giant Plants.
But the reason that I loved this deck so much was once I started introducing Flareon.
Ooh, yeah.
So essentially Flareon came out before Vespa Quinn, and people were really excited for Vespa Quinn because of all the decks that they had made previously with Flareon, which essentially was able to do the same exact thing. It was just fire instead of grass.
What does it do again?
Well, it does the same thing as Vespa Quinn. So it's 20 times the amount of Pokemon in your discard pile is the damage that you would do. Yeah.
The Flareon does that? I thought that was the one that changed Vespa Quinn's type to being part fire.
No. So the Plasma Fusion Flareon had the same attack as Vespa Quinn. However, and the Flareon that you're talking about, I'm getting to. So
okay.
So basically, there was also on top of that, there was a Flareon, a Vaporeon, and a Jolteon that all had this ability where if they were on your bench, then all stage 1 Pokemon in play would attack with their type. So before I started messing around with the Plasma Fusion or Plasma Force, I don't know, it's Plasma something.
Plasma Freeze.
Yes. Plasma Freeze Flareon. Before I started messing with that, I had a different Flareon in order to be able to turn Vespa Quinn's attacks into fire type, and then the Jolteon for electric and the Vaporeon for water. I loved this because it made it so that I could hit a lot of the meta for super effective damage. And I also liked the mechanic of needing to try and find what I needed at the time in order to do that. And instead of Night March, where it was like, well, I mean, this is happening. Night March was like, well, I have a Jolteon out here, and I have a double colorless energy, and your guy's dead now.
You're gone.
And then eventually when I was able to move Flareon into the deck, because it was a relatively expensive card at the time, so it took me a little while to get it.
Wasn't it?
But then I was able to take out the Flareon that had the type ability and put in 2 Plasma Freeze Flareons in order to increase the amount of attackers that I had in my deck.
Mm-hmm.
From 4 to 6. And I could also take out the other Flareon. So it wasn't that much harder to get rid of, or to do the new 60 card deck.
Right.
And there were a lot of things that helped out as well. There was a Klefki that was, you could use it from your hand and put it on a Pokemon for, as like an item.
That's right. I forgot about that one.
Yeah. So you would put it down as an item, and then that item would be discarded after 1 turn. So now you've got another Pokemon in your discard pile. I forget exactly what the ability was. It was something like taking no damage from...
Like a Mega Pokemon, I think. I think it was like
Mega
Mega
Pokemon.
Walk or something like that.
So it was basically like a 1-turn protection from a Mega Pokemon.
Right, but you mainly did it just to drop the Klefki down and have it discard the next turn.
Exactly, yeah. And then you also had...
Unknown was a huge one in that deck, right?
Yeah, the Unknown, which basically at will, you could discard the Unknown as long as it was on your bench and draw a card.
That was so cool.
Increasing the damage plus card draw, which was great. And I could talk for this deck for a really long time, but I'm going to stop there. Before I get too crazy.
Good. Well, then I'm going to take a trip down memory lane myself with my next one. You've talked about kind of what got you into the TCG, so I'm going to talk about the one that got me into it most recently, that I haven't stopped since then. And that is Mega Scizor EX. I wanted to find a deck that used one of my favorite Pokemon, and Scizor is in the top of my favorite Pokemon. This is pre-Bullet Punch, y'all. I used Scizor when its best metal move was Iron Head. Get off my case. But I wanted to use a Scizor deck because I just wanted to get in TCG, and that was the best way to do it. and it played into what the video game listeners would know as my style, which is just annoy the opponent until they either throw the table at me or are unable to take action. And Scizor was great at that because you would combine it with things like Garbodor with Garbotoxin, which blocked all abilities in play if it had a tool attached. You would do Crushing Hammer to get rid of energies. You would do Parallel City, which reduced, if you played it the correct way, reduced your opponent's potential bench size to 3. A lot of other energy disruption, things like Team Flare Grunt, which just discarded an energy. And Scizor itself, whose attack says it does 120, first of all, so that's not nothing. And it says you may discard a special energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon or a Stadium card in play. So if they try to be annoying back at you, you could just pop their Stadium if they don't have any special energy. Or with the combination of Crushing Hammer getting rid of regular energy and Iron Crusher the attack getting rid of special energy, they just didn't get to play, and it was fantastic. I loved the deck. It really got me into it. I had it built. That was the first deck I'd really built in several years, and since then, I've just been going crazy in TCG, and now here I am playing Mew Vmax, which is very much the opposite, which will just blow through you instead of be annoying for a bit. So that's one of my favorites from long ago. It was not particularly good long ago, but it was fun enough that it was good enough that it was fun to play.
Yeah. I had this same deck.
Really?
Yeah, I did. It was a really, because I like Scizor as well, so I was really stoked when this deck came out, and I didn't really have very much success with the deck, but it was an awful lot of fun to play, and it was fun because it was like you were able to do the whole Garbotoxin thing, and because you were basically having to two-hit KO almost everything in the meta at that point, the discarding the energies and Garbotoxin and all that was like a integral part of being able to continue with this deck, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I just got to feel super cool playing a Mega Scizor deck, and I was like, all right, this is great.
It was weak to fire, though, which really sucked at that time.
Yeah, that was, yeah.
Steam Siege came out really soon after this one, which I think was breakpoint for Mega Scizor. And Steam Siege introduced Volcanion EX, which just made fire decks all over the freaking place. So, that and your Vespa Quinn, blech.
Yes. Okay, so this next one was, I think it was created before 2013, but when I went back to look at the deck list, the earliest thing I could see was something that was posted at like in 2013. So, but I think it was before that, like 11 or 12. Anyways, so this is the Goth Gore deck. So basically, it's opponent disruption at its most frustrating for the time.
Oh boy.
So basically, with the move Deck and Cover, which just costs a double colorless, you would do 50 damage, and then paralyze and poison your opponent, and then you would shuffle a Selgor, the Pokemon with the Deck and Cover attack, and all its attached cards back into your deck.
Oh, I hate this.
So I loved it because it was like continual volt switch in the when you're playing like a standard 6v6 match. Like it was it was I just loved how much it mirrored the actual in-game mechanics, right?
Yeah.
I loved that aspect of it. So basically after you do your little 50 damage attack, paralyze and poison, throw Excelgor back in, then you replace Excelgor in the active with Gothitelle and the Magic Room ability, which locks your opponent out of using items as long as Gothitelle is in the active spot.
Oh, I hate it.
And so
that is
so back then the TCG didn't have so much of an HP creep, but it would still have been an uphill battle to try and take them out 50 damage at a time. But you had Dusknoir with his Sinister Hand ability, which allowed you to move as many damage counters as you wanted from any of their benched Pokemon to another.
Oh, why does this keep getting worse?
So this meant you never had to actually knock out the active Pokemon. You just had to add up the 50 plus damage attacks from Excelgor until you started taking knockouts wherever and whenever you wanted to.
What the heck?
This deck would become even more terrifying after the release of Floatstone and Plasma Freeze, which then allowed for basically a perfect lock to become more achievable, because before, obviously, with Gothitelle, you did not have a way to free retreat.
Oh, yeah, you couldn't get back into your Gore.
You could do Switch, or, whatever the equivalent of Switch was at the time in the TCG, but yeah, it wasn't just like a free retreat whenever you wanted to with Floatstone. So once that came out, people were terrified. The best, it wasn't without its own issues, though, because you had to get everything to work correctly in the right order and everything like that. And that wasn't always possible. But the best placement it got that I was able to find was Edmund, I'm sure I'm going to mess this up, Edmund Karras won the U.S. Nationals with this deck, which was its best showing, but this deck was everywhere. People loved the mechanic, and I'm sure a lot of people hated it as well.
I would be on that second list, for sure. All right, I guess it's back to me. So I'm gonna keep going with, funny enough, a card that came out in the same set as your Vespa Quinn. That was the Ancient Origins set, and I don't know if you remember, you probably do, but Vespa Quinn didn't have one. In the Ancient Origins set, a lot of Pokemon had kind of almost a second ability. It was supposed to tie into Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, and a lot of them had these primal abilities, which weren't really blocked by anything like Garbotoxin or any nonsense like that. They were secondary things, like the Bunnelby, for example, that could attack twice.
Oh, yeah.
The deck that I absolutely loved was Mega Sceptile Ex, and it had one of these things, which was just kind of icing on a cake. It wasn't really part of what made it cool. Omega Stop or Theta Stop. Is that Theta?
I can't see.
Let me zoom in. Yeah, I think it's Theta Stop. And it's prevent all effects of your opponent's Pokemon abilities done to this Pokemon, which was kind of cool at the time. But the attack that it did, which is really cool, for 2 energy, 1 grass, 1 colorless, Jagged Saber for 100 damage. You may attach up to 2 grass energy from your hand to your benched Pokemon in any way you like. If you attach an energy to a Pokemon in this way, heal all damage from that Pokemon. So what you would do is you'd have a couple of these Sceptiles set up. You'd have the one in the front that uses Jagged Saber and accelerates energy and heals. Then next turn you would just manually retreat, discarding those 2 energy attached to the active to your new one, then just manual attach for the turn because you accelerated to it with Jagged Saber. Heal the damage that the previous Mega Sceptile had taken with that one's Jagged Saber, rinse and repeat. And you could also combo this with an Ariados that poisoned both active Pokemon, unless they were Grass type, which is perfect. There was a Virizion that had a Rally Back type attack. For however many prizes they've taken, it does more damage. It was kind of similar to the Scizor in just that it was a more annoying kind of stallish deck than it was an outright offense deck. But again, in that day, 100 damage was nothing to laugh at. So Jagged Saber could be taking knockouts as needed.
Yeah, at that time, I think the Megas had like 20 to 30 more HP at the time, but a lot of things were around the 180. So that was the magic number you were trying to hit.
Yeah. Things like Darkrai, for instance, were like 170, 180, and that was the best deck in the format at the time. So it was very fun, especially once Spirit Links had been out at that point, so you could Mega Evolve without forfeiting your turn. That was nice. At the time, Forest of Giant Plants was legal, so you could slap down a Mega Sceptile instantly, as well as an Ariados out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. It was a lot of fun. It kind of plays similar to, if you want a deck like this, if you're hearing this and really want to do it today, look into Inteleon Vmax, which kind of does the same thing, but instead of acceleration, energy, and healing that way, you just use Cheryl, the supporter, which heals all evolutions. Inteleon's one that I wanted to put on this list, but I haven't tested it myself yet. I just like it in theory. So I figured I'd do something that I knew a little bit more about, which was Sceptile, and also Sceptile's really freaking cool.
Sceptile is really cool.
Yeah, so that's that one.
All right, so now I'll move on to my last deck. So this is Junk Hunt Sableye.
You devil.
So there's a theme with these last two decks that I've done, which is basically, don't let your opponent play, which, is not fun when you're on the receiving end of that. But when you can pull off some of these more complicated situations, it's pretty rewarding for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So basically you start out here with Garbodor's Garbotoxin to lock the abilities of your opponent's Pokemon. Then you remove all of the opponent's energy with your insane amount of Crushing Hammers and Enhanced Hammers. Then you Hypnotoxic Laser them, which puts them to sleep and poisons them slowly to death with a little help from Burbank City Gym, which would add to the number of poison counters that would be put on. And so Hypnotoxic Laser was pretty great because basically it made it so that you could time it so that your opponent's Pokemon would die on the turn that it was going to you. So like at the end of their turn.
Okay.
That was fantastic because then you just took out their Pokemon and now they had to scramble and try and figure out which one they were going to throw up there. And a lot of times they wouldn't have the correct energies or anything like that. So you would just be ideally you would constantly be putting them on the back foot.
Mm-hmm.
So basically this just seems like it would be just kind of like a fun little thing that you would do, but Sableye makes this recurring because you've got the attack Junk Hunt, which doesn't actually do any damage. But what it does do is it allows you to search your discard pile for 2 Pokemon tools and then bring them back out.
Trainers, not just tools.
Yeah, sorry, trainers, yes. So you could bring back whatever trainer you wanted.
Pardon me, items. I'm so sorry, items.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I was like...
Yeah. First it was tools, then it was trainers, then it was items. It's items. I'm looking at the card right now just to make sure.
Okay. All right, yeah. My bad.
No, you're good.
Okay, yeah. So,
I led you astray.
Yeah, so you just keep hunting for junk to stop everything that they try to do to get out of the situation. If they pull a float stone and they're super excited because now they can pull their asleep and poisoned Pokemon out of the active, that's too bad because you just got a tool scrapper, and you can just take that out and watch the tears run down their cheeks as their soul slowly dies. With Pokemon Catcher, you could consistently switch out the opponent's Pokemon to keep Sableye safe so that he could junk hunt freely, which is important because you're really not doing damage with any of the Pokemon here. You are, honestly, the only thing you are doing is Hypnotoxic, Lasering, and Burbank City Gym and trying to keep yourself alive.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see. So Eviolite was also used to lower the amount of damage from an opponent's Pokemon when they were able to hit Sableye. The lower damage was basically, you just basically subtract 20 was what that item card did, which doesn't seem like a lot. But when you look at the first attacks of a lot of the Pokemon at the time, they're hitting in the 30 to 50 range, making Sableye a much harder kill when you can't keep any energy on the field and are forced to hit with whatever one energy attack you have at the time.
Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah, I mean, you're just recycling as much as possible, stopping them from doing whatever they want to do, and just slowly taking them out.
I love it. Although I do have bad news for everybody listening. If you want to play that deck that he just described, you can't, because they banned that Sableye in Expanded.
They did. It's true.
Yeah. For that reason, because it was just too annoying, too oppressive. So, sorry, folks, you missed out.
And real quick, I forgot to say this about the Goth Gore deck.
Yeah.
But
ruin my soul more. Tell me what else is bad about it.
Well, so it actually wasn't that. It's just like kind of an anecdote. So,
oh no,
I learned about that deck pretty early in my TCG playing, and that deck actually started me going back through like the TCG and creating. So you know how a lot of people have their Pokemon binders and they'll line them up by Pokemon numbers, stuff like that. Well,
yeah, either sets or generations or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I started doing around the time of the Gothitelle Excelgor, that deck was really old by the time I found out about it. But what I started doing after that was I just started buying only the most integral cards in old or current decks and filling up a single card page with those. And basically just making it like every single card sleeve was a showcase for a different deck.
Okay.
So I would put like the Gothitelle, the Excelgor, Floatstone, Eviolite, Double Colorless Energy. I would put those in there, the Dusknoir, all that, so that I could like remember what these decks were and what made those decks work.
That's cool, actually.
And this was the first one that I ever started doing that with. So,
Oh.
So yeah, something fun for people if they want to do that and spend more money.
That's a really cool thing to do. I may have to get a binder like that started for some of the decks that I've gone through. That's really neat. I like that a lot.
All right. So we're going to end the TCGcast here without the Venusaur Best. I know I'm upset too, but I just totally forgot about it. So it's just not happening.
That happens. And it's December. Our brains are shot. Don't worry.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. And I hope that your holidays are wonderful. Seth, it's been a pleasure.
It's always been a pleasure with you, good sir. I'm glad that I could talk about good old times and good old decks with you. This was a pleasure.
All right, everybody. Take care.